Back in Fangorn Forest, elf, man and dwarf track their halfling friends. Gimli tastes some blood on a leaf and identifies it as orc blood. No one seems surprised that dwarves are taught to recognise their enemy's blood by taste alone, and nor should they be. Conscious, however, of his role as comic relief, Gimli starts trying to make jokes about roots, and in desperation, the other two start speaking Elvish, so he can't join in. Legolas senses the approach of the White Wizard while looking in the other direction, probably in the same mirror he uses for doing his hair. The three attack the effulgent form of the wizard that no one knows is Gandalf. Wink, wink, wink. Gandalf then starts speaking in the wrong voice and tells how the hobbits met someone, but he seems a bit vague as to whom. This confusion is explained as the light dims and Gandalf stands there, displaying the gentle eyes and faint smile of the true Alzheimer's sufferer. The three remind him of his name, Gandalf. Yes, that's what they used to call me. The fact that he has plummeted to his doom, thanks for reminding me, and the inadvisability of wearing his underpants on the outside when going to visit the king. Cut to Edoras, where Éowyn gallops out onto the patio in time to watch the flag blow away. It lands next to Aragorn, who, being a trained ranger, looks up to check that they're not going to get a shower of flags. Relieved that the sky is clear, he presses on up to the Golden Hall. Gandalf, who has been quietly muttering his name to himself during the journey, as an aide-memoire, Gandalf, 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 is shocked upon entering the hall to be called Stormcrow. He just got his other name memorised. When Grima then calls him Larkspell, he gets a trifle testy and attempts to stick his staff up Wormtongue's nose. There is a momentary worry amongst the three heroes when Gandalf apparently tries to drive Saruman out of Theoden by flashing him. But it all comes good. Theoden is restored and immediately sets a new record in the ancient Rohirrim sport of lackey lobbing, getting Grima clean out of the door and down the stairs with one throw. The fact that he used two guards to facilitate this is perfectly within the rules of the sport if you happen to be a king. Theoden is told that Saruman is going to attack, and so he decides to go to Helms Deep against the wishes of Gandalf, who throws a hissy fit and buggers off to find Éomer. The people of Edoras tramp their way across to the fortress, with Gimli, now dressed in a pink shock wig and tutu, telling anecdotes about dwarven women's beards. Finding that he isn't getting enough attention, he falls off his horse. Aragorn, meanwhile, is getting his booty seriously ogled by the rapacious Éowyn. She's done nothing but nurse Theoden for 4 years, and suddenly ponies just aren't enough anymore. To paraphrase the orcish vernacular, she wants Strider Insider. How crude. The Wanderers are attacked by wargs. Tolkien describes them as intelligent wolves. And indeed, these ones are so intelligent, they've disguised themselves as hyenas. Just for laughs. Éowyn is itching to fight, but Theoden sends her to guide the refugees. Theoden has now pissed off Gandalf and Éowyn, who is beginning to wish he was a throne rug again. The combat goes well for all concerned. Legolas gets to mount his horse with the old elven retracting rubber arm trick, and Gimli gets a few laughs by attempting to juggle 3 objects. Unfortunately, the 3 objects are an orc and 2 wargs. Aragorn, sauntering through the movie with the surety of a man who knows that the 3rd book is named after him, is startled to fall off a cliff. Éowyn makes it to Helm's Deep, and the old women thank her. Thank you. Even though she's not carrying anything or indeed doing anything useful at all. Maybe she gave them piggybacks when no one was watching. We now get a little more of the love story between Arwen and Aragorn. Tolkien didn't write a lot about the mushy bits, quite sensibly realising that it would be impossible to justify the love of a gorgeous immortal elf woman with sensitive elven skin for a man with a permanent layer of stubble. Arwen, however, clearly likes her bit of rough, and she sticks by Aragorn, even against her father's wishes. But back to the story. Aragorn is rescued by Mr. Ed and taken back to Helms Deep, where he is hugged by an increasingly Scottish Gimli, who calls him Laddie. Gimli is also starting to treat both the elf and the human as young'uns, even though Book Legolas and Book Aragorn are both older than him. Must be a beard thing. Legolas, upon seeing Aragorn, tells him that he looks dreadful, hands him a pendant and advises him to accessorise. This was the inspiration for the famous Middle-earth stage act, Elfi for the Straight Guy. Helms Deep is preparing for siege. We see the huge fortress from the air and notice the statue of its creator, Helm Hammerhand. The statue stands atop the stairs to the Hornburg, holding its famous hammer. Across the stairs, however, stands a broken statue. Did you see that? Now, I did some research into this. This was a statue of Helm's less famous brother, Holm Hamsterhand, who was famous for going into battle armed only with his glove puppet, Binky, son of Biinkord. Many an enemy died laughing, having never before encountered a +10 Vorpal sock puppet. He was considered too silly for history, and his statue was removed. Deep in the forest, the Ents are meeting. Merry wants them to go to war, but the Ents consider that a moot point. Shut up. Far away to the east, Frodo, Sam and Gollum are not doing so well. Gollum's two personalities are becoming more distinct, which is cheering Frodo up because he believes that they'll finally have enough for a decent game of bridge. But then, before Frodo manages to teach Sam how to count, the Smeargol personality beats the Gollum personality in a game of word association. You know, thief, not listening, murderer. Aardvark, artichoke. Can't think of one, you lose, ha! Gollum disappears. Smeargol, the nice one, tears apart some small furry animals to celebrate. Sam sees the Oliphant but doesn't get to recite his poem before he is grabbed by Faramir and his merry men. Faramir reveals himself as Boromir's brother, and Frodo fails to endear himself by saying, "Yes, I could tell by the huge Gondorian conch." Movie Faramir is not as noble as Book Faramir and spends some time wrestling with the desire for the ring. He takes the hobbits to Osgiliath, where Book Frodo never trod. This is why the Nazgul they meet, who hasn't kept up to date with the script changes, completely fails to recognise the hobbit or the ring, even though it's only a couple of feet away. Instead, they try to eat Frodo, who is saved by Sam. Faramir fires an arrow into the beast, which screams and is clearly hurt. The other 578 bowmen down below all say, "Bugger, why didn't I think of that?" Guess that's why he's the boss, hey? Back to Helm's Deep. Theoden looks out from the walls and sees the circling birds. He sings, "Buzzards in the air, everywhere I look around," but fortunately is stopped from continuing when 10,000 heavily armed Uruk hove into view. The Uruk are singing selections from their repertoire of war chants, including such popular hits as "I'm Grunting in the Rain," "Raindrops Keep Falling on the Dead," and the ever-popular Orcish love ballad, "I'm About to Tear Your Scrotum Off and Eat It." The tension on the wall is high, and one old fella accidentally lets fly an arrow. It kills an orc, and the other orcs are horrified. They weren't planning on attacking the fortress at all, really. They'd just come for a bit of a sing-song. But now they were pissed off. Of course, you realise this means wah. Up on the battlements, Gimli, now dressed in rainbow tights and a helicopter hat, and armed with a bladder on a stick, trades short gags with Legolas. They start a competition based on who can kill the most orcs, and Gimli, in the excitement, forgets that he can't count. He kills 20 on the wall and then another 20 at the gate. The king's retainer says, "Never have I seen a bladder on a stick wielded with such skill." Regardless of this, Gimli sees his big chance at a dwarf-tossing gag, and in the excitement loses count and ends up with 43. Saruman has a plan to blow up the wall, and it involves what appears to be a very dangerous leg of the Olympic torch run, with people firing arrows and throwing rocks. This succeeds, and the Hornburg is taken. Theoden and company retreat to the last rooms of the castle. They tell Gimli to go and blow the horn of Helm, and he does, making a noise like the world's biggest whoopee cushion, and covering himself with white powder that old Helm put in there as a gag. The riders burst forth and meet up with Eomer and Gandalf and 1,000 horses coming down a 45-degree slope, and all praying that the one in front of him doesn't trip. Good guys won, bad guys zip. In Fangorn, the Ents have decided not to fight, and Treebeard is taking Merry and Pippin to the northern borders. Pippin manages to trick the oldest and wisest being in Middle-earth with a bit of hugely spurious logic, and they spend the rest of the trip telling him that his shoelaces are undone. Horrified by the destruction of his forest, Treebeard calls the Ents and pronounces that it is likely we go to our doom, the last march of the Ents. This turns out to be a bit needlessly melodramatic, as the Ents proceed to kick the stuffing out of the Isengard orcs without sustaining so much as a scratch. Saruman, the slightly grubby, is trapped. Good guys too, bad guys zip. And as we finish the movie, we see Saruman on the balcony singing.